So you guys know how I'm absolutely not a history channel, especially not a maritime history channel, especially a channel that would do well with such things because my retention of this information is pretty terrible and I unfortunately do not script any of my videos, so I have no hope of ever improving that. But as I was on the treadmill one evening, the YouTube algorithm recommended some videos to me because I started watching a channel called Ocean Liner Designs, something like that. And basically, it's a guy, which is really cool. He has a great narrator voice and he even dresses up for his videos. It was something about the Titanic, of course, and it was something that I hadn't really considered before. And then, because of that, now the algorithm gods keep suggesting to me stories of maritime disasters. And then I ran into a video about two ship disasters that I had never heard of before. But this one in particular hit me the most because I had absolutely no idea. I never heard of it in my life. And I just wanted to bring it here and mention it to see if any of you guys happened to have known about this and how did you find out? Because I feel like when it comes to how a tragedy is sold to us, sometimes only the more romanticized ones, like the Titanic, tend to be heard of, but others get a little bit of a mention if they are somewhat closely related to that primary one, but then the rest just fall into obscurity. And there's so many stories out there that are intriguing that I personally believe are deserving of being told, because after I hear of the story, I learned stuff and I just like to learn stuff. And I just wish that we did better about feeding us better stuff to learn. The name of this ship, it's about time I mention it, but it's on the title, of course. It's the Lancastrian. Had you ever heard of the Lancastrian disaster? I'm going to do my best to summarize what I remember from what I watched, but I know that this disaster, in a sense, was linked to another one. And then that other one, I went to the comment section of that video and be like, if it wasn't for you mentioning this that led me to look up that, I would be oblivious. To give this ship the proper title, it's not even an RMS ship, it's an HMT ship. This ship was bombed during World War II, and given that this is supposed to be the maritime disaster that led to the most deaths in British history, I would think that we would have heard of it by now, more commonly speaking. But if all of you heard it and I'm just a slow one here, then I need to stop living under a rock. That's the point of this. I want to find out just how many people actually know, or how many people just took the Titanic as, oh yeah, because it's the most well-known disaster, that's because it's been the worst disaster. But in the Titanic, it was only like 1,000 something people that died. And I phrase it as only because in the Lancastria, it's estimated that 4,000 to 6,000 people died. That's like 5 times more than how many people died on the Titanic. And yet over here, we don't talk about that at all. This ship was actually built in Scotland, in the Glasgow shipbuilding site. It's not that Irish shipyard where Titanic was made. So that is something that I think is worthy of pointing out, that stood out to me because I always assumed that any epic ship from the time would have been built in Ireland, but not necessarily. Maybe it's because of the type of ship it is. But also, to be even fairer, this ship is more a 1920s ship. It isn't from the immediate generation of the Titanic. Also, I think something I should mention is that before it was called the Lancastrian, it was called the Terranium. Shit, I don't even remember. But basically, it's because people had trouble pronouncing it, allegedly. I don't find it that bad, but me personally, I like the name Lancaster. So I like the Lancastrian. So maybe that's my bias speaking. Also, the Terrania, sounds more like a name that you might want to give a train because it has the word Terra in it, you know? After this renaming, maybe like a decade later when the Great Depression began and people just weren't traveling as much anymore, it eventually was used more as a cruise ship, more for, I guess, hopping between European countries and not really for transatlantic travel. Toward the 1940s, that's when it got like repainted into more of a troop ship kind of design. It had like a gray color to it, and that's where the HMT comes from. As you can imagine, it does have something to do with a royal name type of thing. It's His Majesty's troop ship, troops ship, something like that. Shit, I didn't even know that ships could have that title to it, but this one did. And in a sense, something nice that whatever video I was watching put in perspective for me is why you wouldn't necessarily want to voice the fact that this happened, because this is not just an ordinary troop ship just getting bombed during war. It's supposed to have contained civilians as well, men, women, children, who have nothing to do with being soldiers. And I'm guessing if you were to communicate that to your country, that this thing happened, yeah, it would be a blow to morale that's possibly low already. But I don't know, there's a part of me that would still want to know. And back then, when communication differed from how it is today, I don't know, it's easy for me to think about, well, what I would want is this and that, but I wasn't living during those times. I'm not a European. I wasn't over there experiencing that type of thing. So having 1920s, 30s, 40 mindset. So who knows, maybe the right thing was done here to not tell anybody of this. The thing here is that most of the people, regular people, passengers, died during the initial attack. And as the ship was sinking, there were still people trapped. As the ship, continued to list and pretty much sink on its side, and only a certain number of people were able to make it to the side of the ship, just stand on it as your floating device now. With as much effort as they put, they meaning the governments of the time, to keep the story from being told, the news ended up leaking anyway, because guess what? Bodies actually started floating and appearing on the shore. This was on the coast of France, I want to say. It was either France or Italy. I forget where that happened. Europe, which, now that I think about it as an American, I cannot expect for details that go deeper than superficial information to make it, unless that's something that you're actively studying. But again, the point that I'm trying to make is the Titanic has been sold to us as the ultimate disaster, the disaster that tops all of those disasters ever. But in reality, this one, that by comparison is slightly more recent compared to the Titanic, which it had been gone for like 20 years approx before this one. Like, come on. So anyways, you guys, if you have never heard of that, then I thought I would share that with you because I thoroughly enjoyed learning about that. Now, I'm getting ready to stop this video right here to tell you guys about yet another ship that I hadn't heard of, And that ship's comment section led to me learning about this sinking, because had it not been for that video I initially watched, I would have never heard of the Lancastria to this day. If there's ever been a disaster, let's limit it in this case to maritime ones, that ever impacted you, let me know, share it with me, because I've been interested in that type of thing lately. And it makes sense. Like my dad and my brother do that stuff as well. They're both mariners and sea captains. My dad was a sea captain as well. So, pilot ships. I really don't care for travel, but I do like to hear stories about that. But maritime stories to me are freaking scary. So, yeah, I've read about and watched about some stuff. Editing them here because I keep messing this thing up when I'm editing videos, but I deleted a portion of it in which I said, you guys, honestly, the point of this is to put this topic on your radar. If you're interested, look deeper into the details, and there are some great sources online. I pretty much don't want to repeat or replay those things. I tried to share the things that I could remember about that, but if it's something that interests you, I encourage you to actually look up this info, look up this story, and dive into it as deep as you wish. I honestly didn't go deeper than just one video, but it's because the previous story is the one that shocked me the most.